This falling under the influence of the Spirit, this is often referred to being as slain in the Spirit, resting in the Spirit, being overcome in the Spirit. In this, if you hear people laughing or you see people on the video falling out, it's all normal. People feeling lightness, often a sense of joy. Some just lay down to receive more from God, such as emotional or physical healing, deliverance, or impartation of power from ministry. So I've actually seen people through this display of falling out in the Spirit. I've seen deliverance happen so quick. I've seen tumors fall off. I went and I had a guy that was in my room and he was praying with me and he just began to bleed from the nose and he completely manifested. I would not have thought it at all. Ended up taking him through deliverance right there, and it was so effortless. So when this manifestation of falling out in the Spirit happens, there's all kinds of things that happen. But what I'm going to talk to you about is let's view what the Bible says about this, being slain in the Spirit. We see when Jesus presents himself to John in Revelations, it says that he falls to the ground and appears as dead. Jesus raises him back up. Jesus actually presented himself in his glory. We see this on the Mount Transfiguration, that they fell to their knees in fear and trembled before Jesus as he presented himself in his glory. We see this as the soldiers came to arrest Jesus. And he said, I am, and he presented himself in his glory as I am the Son, I am the representation of the Father. And as soon as he said that, it says that all 300 fell on their backs. Power of God came. That's in. So we see this in the encounter on the road to Damascus. We see Paul. Now, in the first story of Paul in Acts 9, chapter 9, verse 4, we actually we see it from a different perspective. Maybe from Luke's perspective, we don't know. But it's pretty much putting Paul in the limelight here. But it says that Paul fell from his horse, and that they could see a bright light. The glory of God began to manifest, and Jesus presented himself. But when Paul is giving his testimony after he's caught by the Jewish leaders at the synagogue and he's on the steps, he actually says that we all fell from our horses, so that everybody that was in the company of Paul actually had the Spirit manifest upon them. So we have all these different things. We have glory clouds, that, like I was talking about, falling down upon meetings and different things. We see that large numbers might be incapacitated by the power of the Spirit, like in the dedication of Solomon's temple. Here they have hundreds of cattle piled up in this humongous sacrifice and they're going to dedicate the temple. And it says that a fire came down from heaven and it devoured the sacrifice. It instantly just vanished and it burned it up, and that no man was left standing. They were all out by the power of God. Daniel said he fell to the ground and said, I have no strength, and even passed out, going into a deep sleep. He said he was overwhelmed by God's presence, having no strength to get up. Ezekiel fell down before the glory of the Lord in Ezekiel 1:28. Daniel could hear and was aware of his condition and his surrounding. That's Daniel 10, verse 9. So we see in 2 Chronicles, when the glory of the Lord comes down, almost like a glory cloud, it says that the house of the Lord was filled with the cloud, so that the priest could not continue ministering because of the cloud. And the glory of the Lord filled the house. The glory was manifest in such power that the priest could not function or enter into the temple because of the glory of the Lord. Now, what I want to throw out first is a lot of these Old Testament scriptures, a lot of the glory that fell, a lot of fear and different things was a response to how they saw that. Remember when Moses came down from the mountain and he beheld the glory of God and was transformed, and he carried the glory upon his face, that the children of Israel, when they saw the glory, they actually ran from his presence. And he put a veil over his face. And every time he would get, and it would begin to wear off, and then all of a sudden he would get before the presence of God again, and the glory would come back upon him. See, when Jesus came down, 3,000 fled, or I think it was 3,000 died when Moses came down from the mountain and the earth opened up and swallowed them, when he came down with the law and had the glory upon his face. When Jesus came down from the mountain of transfiguration, people embraced him and came toward him. There's a difference between the glory of the Old Testament and the glory of the New Testament. As 2 Corinthians says, that the glory of the Old Testament, in how wonderful it was, but how much more is the glory of Jesus and the presence that we can carry, that we can look at Jesus as beholding him in a glass, and we can be changed from glory to glory. We aren't fearing his presence anymore, but we're embracing it. Our hearts are to become a habitation of his glory, to be so overcome by his presence that when we walk down the streets, we can be like Peter. Our shadow begins to heal people, and we can carry the glory of the Lord with such, just through our identity of who we are in him, we can become like Jesus and just release the glory everywhere we go. So you had this where the glory of the Lord came down, and the priest could not even be near the glory of God. And the Hebrew word for glory is kavod, which means weight or heaviness. You'll see some people that the presence and the glory will begin to fall on them, and it's almost like a weight underneath it. It's just, there's some that feel a lightness. Maybe they're releasing something, hardness of the heart,